I'm Emily.
And I'm Tanner.
And you're listening to the Sencilla podcast, a conversation about simplicity.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Tanner from the Sencilla podcast. It is 12 April 2021. We are still in Sarasota, Florida, working on boat projects. Just finished up our solar installation. You can go see a video of that at YouTube. And Emily is still studying for her medical test, the MCAT, which is going to be in like 10 days. And then we'll be ready to head out on our trip. And she will be back in the episodes full time, I believe. So yeah, this is probably going to be the last one that's solo. So yeah, we're getting ready to basically leave the marina the last day of April, first day of May. We are going to at least go out on anchor and start making our way down to Key West. And then right now the plan is to go to Cuba, stay in Havana for a little while for quarantine and whatnot, and then make our way down the north coast of Cuba to the west and then jump over to Mexico. That's the plan for now. If we can't get into Cuba, I think we're going to go ahead and sail from Key West straight to Mexico. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. But that's the plan right now. So that's a little update on what's going on with us right now. So if you want to support us, one of the big things you can do is go check out our swag store. You can find that on our Facebook page or at our website under the support tab. I'll link those in the show notes if you want to check it out. We have a lot of cool stuff, man. We're going to build out more stuff as we progress. As we sell some of the inventory we have now, we'll probably look at expanding a little bit. But, we wanted to have some items that are useful, I guess, not just some cheap stuff, drop ship stuff. I mean, we have some cool like recycled or trucker hats made from recycled materials that are really cool. I wear them in the episode sometimes. We also have some Yeti Ramblers with our logo engraved, which, those things last forever and they're amazing. So I don't know if you have a Yeti, but you should get one. And we also have a lot of sweet Sencilla stickers that you can slap on your Nalgene or on your hydro flask or your laptop or whatever. So yeah, check those out and grab them. Also, if you just want to send us a couple bucks to buy us a beer or a taco or whatever because you enjoy the show, you can also. There's just a direct donate button on the support page of our website. We put out another podcast that's way more in depth about our experiences. We talk more about the adventure and learning about boating and sailing and, all of the hardships. It's just going to be way more in detail and less about a topic like this podcast is. So you can access that via our Patreon, and you can also get free swag that we have, as well as discounts to future swag. You can get access to a patron-only Facebook page, as well as live streams and the ability to communicate with us directly and choose topics for the podcast or for the live stream. So check it out. So let's go over the topic for today. We're going to talk about building a simple solar setup for your sailboat, something that we just did in order to increase our self-sufficiency, self-sustainability while we're out there sailing. Power is pretty important. Your instruments, your chart plotter, your engine starts via power, your stove runs on power, the oven, your lights, pretty much everything. You need power for a lot of it. Not a lot of power, but you do need some. So we just completely upgraded our solar setup in the last couple weeks, and we're pretty happy with it. So I'm going to go over what a small solar system looks like, and how we accomplish that. And yeah, if you have a van or an RV, or you own a sailboat as well, and you want to listen to another person's experience about how to build a small setup fully DIY, then you're going to like this episode. So I'm going to talk about just an article about the increases or technological advances over the last 15, 20 years that have made solar much cheaper and better So it's an article from Green Tech Media. I'll link it in the description if you want to read more. It's pretty cool. It's got a lot of cool facts about the decreasing cost and some expectations for the future. So it says solar will be the cheapest form of electricity by 2030, and solar costs will decline by 15 to 25% over the next 10 years. That's pretty cool because I feel like tiny home living, RV living, van life, sailboat living is kind of like on the rise, being more self-sustaining. There's a big push for all the climate change stuff going on and wanting to kind of reduce your footprint. And this is a pretty cool way, and it's getting cheaper. So if you take a look back in the past, solar installation prices were reduced by 80% between 2000 and 2010, and now it's about $1 per watt. And that trend will continue in the future. And I already feel like a small system is relatively affordable. I mean, I guess it's relative, so it depends on where you're at, but it's really not that expensive, and it's really not that hard to set up. I know it says $1 per watt. That's definitely true for solar panels because we bought 400 watts and they were $100 per 100 watt panel. So that's $400 for 400 watts. So definitely have firsthand experience with that one. Okay, so I guess I'll go into how do you plan your setup or what you're going to buy or your whole system, and how much power do you use? That's one of the first things you should do is find out how much power are you going to need to produce for your boat or for your van or whatever. So this is something that we weren't totally sure of while we were planning, mostly because of our fridge. We have an old Adler Barber cold plate. We really didn't know how much power it used. We didn't have the model number. I can't find a data plate for it or anything like that to go off of. And I had no battery monitor. So it was really difficult to tell how much power that cold plate used at any one time or throughout the day. So I was a little worried about that because I didn't know. And I know that pulls a lot of power in comparison to the rest of the things on a boat. Your fridge runs quite a bit and it uses a lot of power, So yeah, a little concerned about that. And also wasn't really sure how much power all of our instruments and our autopilot would use. These are all things you can research pretty easily. You can look up in the manual or online how much power those things are supposed to use, but you never really know until you actually turn them on and see the power being drawn from your bank through your battery monitor. That's when you really know. So yeah, those are things that we weren't totally sure of, but I had a decent idea. And so I basically went off of what I could find online. That's what we started with. So the system we had before, the old system, we had a solar setup on the boat when we bought it. I don't know how old it was. I don't know who installed it. After using it, because we just upgraded it, and we've had the boat for like 6 months now. So we've been using what system was on it for quite a while, and I spent a little bit of time, more than one day, about 10 days with no shore power to kind of see how well the system worked, and we were very much short on power a lot of the time. I don't know if the batteries were old, but we weren't getting, or the solar panel, we weren't getting a lot of productivity out of our solar panel, and we also seemed to be discharging the batteries very quickly. So that was pretty concerning. We were getting like maybe 140 watts in peak sunshine with a 327 watt panel. So that's like 40%. And from my research, I believe solar panels should be giving you about, 85% efficiency. We were not getting that. And I didn't have a battery monitor, but I had like a voltage meter for the battery bank, and we were seeing it drop below 60%, like within like 20 minutes of running some lights, or running the stove and like the water pumps for the sink. It would already be discharged, and I would be concerned that the starter battery would, because that's another thing is we had a house bank and a starter bank, but they were all the same batteries, so they were all being used all the time. And that might be confusing, but that's how the setup was. And I was very concerned about discharging the batteries and not being able to start the motor the next day, which had happened to me once. So we were pretty worried about that. That was not good. And we definitely were planning on living on anchor for nearly the entirety of our trip this year. Maybe like every once in a while getting a slip, or I think when we're in Guatemala, we're going to stay in a marina for a month or two just because we're not going to be moving, and it'll be a nice break. So, but anyways, we need solar power. We need to be able to generate power to live. So it was pretty important. It was definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest project we had that we wanted to get done. So one of the things I highly recommend is some type of battery monitor so you can see the loads being placed on your bank at any given time. You can just flick on your fridge and see the watts instantly start draining from your bank, or turn on your autopilot and your instruments, and you can kind of see. It's easy to find out how much draw you're going to have, which is really great. It's going to give you a good idea of what you're actually drawing. And product manuals are nice, but it's really great to just see it live. So that's definitely one thing. When you're setting up or building your system, building your setup, kind of getting an idea of what you want, add a battery monitor. We got the Victron BMV 712 like smart battery monitor. I'll link all the stuff that we bought for our system and the schematic and everything so you can see it in the show notes. But I think it was like a couple $100, which is expensive, but I can see the amp hour draw, watts draw, how much the bank is gaining from the solar, like how much is being put into the battery. I can see the voltage at all times. I can see how many hours we have remaining based on the current draw. And you can see a percentage of your battery bank. And you can also see all of those things on an app on your phone, which has some other information like, how many watts you've used in a certain, you can kind of see like your trends over time, which is really great. And it's on your phone via Bluetooth. So that's why I like the BMV smart battery monitor, because you can just pop open the app and see what's going on with your battery bank. It's pretty great. Okay, so once you get your system built, which basically is you need to figure out how much power you're going to need. So what you can do is you can look at what are the main things you're going to be running. Like for us, it's a fridge, lights in the evening for a few hours, our stove, our water pumps to get the sink running. And then when we're actually sailing, we're going to need our autopilot, chart plotter, wind instrument, depth sounder, things like that. So you can kind of have like two categories, maybe, one for sailing and one for at anchor, maybe. Yeah, so you need to know, you can take maybe like all of that for an hour and then, figure out how many hours in the day you're going to be running those things. And you can get an idea of about how much power you're going to use in a day. And then, after you have how much power you think you're going to use, then you need to look at how much solar do you want to supplement whatever battery bank. So, once you have how much power you're going to use, you need to decide, how many days do you want worth of power, or how much time. If you're going to use on average about 1,000 watts a day, a 2,400 watt bank, or, a 100 amp hour battery bank, which is pretty standard, I think, for boats. That's 2,400 watts, and you're going to use 1,000. So that gives you 2 days and a little bit more, 2 days and a quarter or so before you run out of power if you don't get any solar. So you got to think of it like that. How many days of like continuity, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word, but how many days of power you want in your bank. So for us, we haven't hardly used any power. I've looked at the actual usage over time, and I think we've discharged, or the amount of power we've consumed with mostly just the fridge and lights running over the last couple weeks since we installed it, hasn't even been enough power to have drained the batteries one time if we had no solar. So, but that's also, we're not, out sailing and things like that very often right now. So I'm sure the usage will go much higher, but it's nice to know that, we have plenty of battery bank. So when you get your battery bank, say you want to have 200 amp hour batteries, that's about 2,400 watts. You got to think about what kind of batteries do you want? Because if you're going to go lithium, you're going to get much more out of your battery than if you go lead acid or AGM. I don't know the exact specs on your depth of discharge for batteries, but I will just say, kind of in layman's terms, a lithium battery, you're going to be able to use like, 80 to 95% of the battery without damaging it consistently. When you're using like a lead acid battery, a standard car battery type of a thing, you're only going to be able to use like 50% of it without damaging it. And what I mean by damaging it, I mean like over consistent discharge below that number or that percentage, you're going to start to, I don't know technically what happens, but I know you're going to decrease the level of like chargeability of your battery over time. So it starts to like lose the ability to become fully charged and whatnot, right? It makes it less capable, less productive, or less usable, whatever word you want to use. Basically, you have 50% of whatever that battery says it has. So if you have a 100 amp hour battery at 12 volts, that's 1200 watts of battery bank, 1200 watts. So really you only have 600 if you're using a lead acid. If you have a lithium battery, now you're looking at more like 1100, usable watts. It's basically double. But they're way more expensive, If you go buy a lead acid battery, it's going to cost you like $100, $120. You go buy a lithium battery, it's going to cost you $950 or $1,000. And I think they've gone down a lot in price, but you have to make that decision. And I know the cycle rate, like how many life cycles a battery has. A lithium is it's like 5,000 and a lead acid is like 500. So you may have that lifespan may be going from like 2 or 3 years or a year to like 10 years before you need a new battery. So, you got to, decide what's best for you. But anyways, so yeah, there's your batteries. You got to figure out how many watts of bank you want, what type of battery you're going to want. And then you need to go over to your solar. So if you have 2,400 watts in your bank, 200 amp hour batteries, 2,400 watts, if you have 400 watts of solar, for instance, for us, it would take 4 times 6, 6 hours of direct 100% efficiency of your solar panels to charge a battery from zero, your whole bank from 0 to 100%, 6 hours. Obviously, that's not really ever going to be the case because hopefully you're not discharging your batteries to 0 and you're also never going to get 100% efficiency. So you're going to have times early in the morning, later in the evening where the sun is not high in the sky that you'll be getting maybe 50%, 30%, 70%. And then when the peak, you may get 90%, right? So it's going to vary, but you can kind of get an idea. So for us, 2,400 watts battery bank, 400 watts solar, it's about 6 hours of sunlight in one day to charge them fully. And that seems, to be fine. We may have a little overkill on solar actually, but it's really nice because it charges our bank pretty quick. But anyways, so then you get your solar, how much solar you want, you have your bank, what kind of batteries you want, how much battery bank you want, and then you got to get your solar controller, which is going to basically take whatever the voltage and amps that are coming out being produced by that solar panel and convert them into a charge that your batteries can receive safely. That's really it. Then you got to hook it all up. There's more to it, but that's kind of the basics of it. So the next thing I would do, once you kind of have those broad ideas or kind of like your main points there in your system, I would build like a schematic. And I'll show what I built for our boat so you can kind of see what it looks like for us, for a pretty small boat, pretty small system. And you can also Google other schematics, and they're everywhere. You can have plenty to look at and research. Before we started installing anything, we went through the system that was already on the boat. And we made sure we understood how everything was wired and labeled everything. So before we unplugged anything or before we took cables off the batteries, we made sure we knew where they were going and we labeled them accordingly so that we could put them back the way they went before. And it helped me to build our schematic. So I built it on a computer, on PowerPoint, and I took every single component that we already had or that we are going to have, and I drew the wires to everything, and I also labeled what gauge they were going to be, and tried to guess how long they were going to be so that we could get the right amount of wire. And yeah, all this stuff that we bought, I will link all of it. It'll probably be affiliate link, so if you do decide to buy some of it, we can get a 1%, make a 1% off of it, so that'd be nice. So check it out. It'll be in the show notes. So first thing we did, plan. Come up with your plan. Second step was to build the schematic before we bought anything. And then after that was the installation. So I guess I can talk about maybe like what the cost associated with building a setup for a small boat like this. We have a 33-foot boat. I guess I can talk about how much it costs to buy everything and install it. So we replaced about 95% of the setup that was already on our boat. This wasn't something we just immediately did. I used it, like I said, for several months to make sure that we actually needed these things to be upgraded, and spent a ton of time researching what we needed and why. So much time, tons of time planning and researching. It took us probably several months. I mean, it did take us several months before we even bought anything because we were just researching what we wanted to make sure. You know, we needed new house batteries, solar panels, charge controller, and an inverter. And we also got a DC to DC charger, which I haven't got working fully yet, but should be able to take the power generated by the alternator, charge up the starter battery, and then convert the voltage to what a lithium battery can receive. So you can also charge your lithium batteries with a DC to DC charger with the alternator, that is. So anyways, yeah, so we got a new batteries. We bought 200 amp hour lithium batteries from Battleborn Batteries. We bought 400 watt panels from Renogy. We bought a Victron 30 amp MPPT charge controller and I can't remember the name, but we bought like a 2200 watt inverter. Maybe a little overkill for our system, but it works really great. We spent about $3,500 and we mostly replaced everything. So a lot of the cost was for the lithium batteries. Those things were like $1,000 a piece, you know. Everything else, I guess if you got lead acid batteries, you could do the same thing for like the whole system for like $1,500, but you'd have a reduced battery bank unless you bought double batteries, which it still would be a reduction in cost by quite a bit. But yeah, most of the other stuff though, like the charge controller, the battery monitor, which is another thing I forgot to say, we bought a battery monitor too, the smart battery monitor from Victron. Yeah, the inverter, the charge controller, the battery monitor, the whatever, all that stuff, it was like normally running about $200 to $300 for each item. It was really the batteries that were killer. So yeah, I would say, I don't know how much it would cost for someone to install your system for you, but we did it 100% ourselves. We also spent some money on, you know, copper connectors for battery cables. We bought the wire and built the wires ourselves. You know, that stuff takes time and it takes some money. I don't know exactly how much we spent on that stuff, but we did it 100% ourselves and it took a little bit of time. So I guess that's something you're going to have to think about for yourself if you want to pay for someone to do it or do it yourself. So some of the stuff that we learned and how we executed our plan, it took us about 5 days to get everything installed. I think the first 2 days was mostly like planning. We had already purchased everything, and it was like a plan of like, okay, what are we going to disconnect first? What are we going to do? What are the steps we're going to take? Are we going to mount everything? You know, then are we going to disconnect everything, get it out of the boat, mount everything, then put the batteries in, then make all the cables? You know, what is going to be hooked up first? Do we hook up the solar panels last? You know, stuff like that. We did a lot of planning. This is the first time we had ever done a solar installation, so there were a lot of like tools and stuff we didn't have or that we didn't know we needed. So a lot of our time was spent driving to the hardware store because we forgot something. So definitely if I had to do it again, I think we would spend a lot less time because we would know what we needed from the beginning. So that was definitely a lesson learned, was, you know, knowing what you're going to need. It's all planning, knowing what you're going to need and what tools you're going to need. And then, yeah, I mean, it took us 5 days. We basically unplugged, we labeled everything, made sure we knew everything was going, took everything apart and removed it, the old stuff. Then we mounted all of the new hardware, like bus bars, fuses, like circuit breaker fuses, the battery shunt. I built another battery box because it was just laying on the hull. Then we mounted the solar panels. Then we cut all the wires because we could measure for sure how long they need to be, cut all the wires, crimp them and heat shrink them and all that stuff, build the cables. And then we connected everything back to the battery that was already connected before. And then we ran like the inverter. We ran all the lines through the new stuff, like the fuses and things like that. And the last thing we did was connect the solar panels to the charge controller, and then the charge controller to the actual, well, actually, the battery bank was already connected to the charge controller. We connected the solar panels at the very end. That was the last thing we did. And that was it. And then we started it all up, and pretty much everything runs. Everything works great. It's just the DC to DC charger I'm still messing around with, trying to figure out when it turns on based on voltage of the start. I don't know. I got to learn more about it. I didn't get that running, but the solar was running. The batteries are working. The battery monitor is working. Everything else is fine. The inverter works great. It's all good. So nothing ever works perfect the first time. But we did pretty good. I'm pretty proud of us. So yeah, the new system, I'm really happy with it. It's been giving us a lot more power than we were used to. Before like I said, we would run the batteries down really fast and with hardly any use, and our solar production was really bad. With the new panels, I've already noticed is generating 380 watts of power during good sunlight, which is 95% efficiency, which is really amazing. And, we can still pull around 100 watts at least, at like 9 a.m. or 7 p.m. when the sun is either just coming up or setting. We still can pull really good power. It's really amazing. I wasn't super optimistic in how well it would work, just because our old system was performing so poorly. And I was already thinking, I was trying to convince Emily, like, we need to get a wind generator. We should probably buy like a little Honda generator so we have, we can run something off of gas. Like I was not optimistic. But I've been pleasantly surprised. It's worked really well, and I'm pretty excited to see how well it does over time when we really start putting a lot of use into it. But so far, I think it's going to be perfect for what we need. It's been really great. So yeah, if you want to see kind of a video of us performing this setup, you can check out our YouTube. We just posted a video of it like a week ago. And then if you want to know more about kind of the schematic, all of the things that we bought and that we used to upgrade our system, you can. I'm going to put them in the show notes, and I'm also going to write a blog article about it and put that in our on our website under the blog. You can check that out. And yeah, the so what of the episode really is, you can do DIY solar upgrades to whatever it is that you want. Tiny home, a boat, a van, RV. It's really not that hard, and it's pretty amazing. It feels pretty good to be able to produce a lot of energy with the sun. It's really awesome, and I hope it really increases our sustainability out there without having to use power or gas or whatever. I guess I mean shore power. We won't need to be on shore, and we won't have to use any diesel or gas, and we can still generate enough power to live our lives. So it's pretty amazing. I'm excited. But yeah, so hope you guys like this episode. Remember, go check out YouTube, go check out our website, go check out our swag if you want to buy some cool stuff. And yeah, thanks for supporting, and we will catch you guys next time. Peace.
Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Sencilla podcast. Please like, rate, comment, or share if you enjoyed the episode. If you'd like to support us, you can by subscribing to our YouTube channel or Patreon, where you can get some additional content and some cool swag. Check out our website at sailingsencilla.com, where you can learn more about us and our mission, and links to all the content we produce each week. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.